Okay, so today on the podcast, we're going to talk about something a little different. And I realized we haven't actually done this after 430 episodes. I always wondered to myself, is there anything we haven't spoken about when it comes to body transformation, fitness? And it turns out there's one episode we've not done, and that is on the art and science of peak week. And the reason why I say it's the art and science is there are obviously there's scientific recommendations and things which just work from a physiological perspective. But there's also a bit of an art to it as well, where especially if you've got someone who's very lean, it can be quite an interesting week to play around with some cool stuff. So what we're going to do in this podcast is break down what peak week is, what the rules are, what not to do, what to do, and then also just play around with some different scenarios of the three different categories of people and where you might fall into. So let's kick it off. What's the number one rule of peak week?
You got to be in shape. That is by far literally the most important thing. And I guess what we could define, what does in shape mean, right? Because that's going to vary from person to person. So again, I think coming into any peak week, you want to be bringing the best condition that you possibly can bring. Now, again, there are obviously many factors that can make a physique look a certain way. Muscle mass is a big one. So if you're carrying a lot of muscle mass and you're very, very, very lean, you can definitely maximize your peak week quite well. We've seen that happen quite a few times. You're a great example that we'll probably talk about later on. But at the end of the day, even though having more muscle mass is going to be a huge advantage and will probably allow for a better peak, that doesn't mean that if you don't carry a ton of muscle mass, doesn't mean that we still can't make some last minute adjustments and changes to really, really peak the physique. And, we'll go through how we'll do that depending on your own level of conditioning. But fundamentally, everyone should be as lean as they possibly can be by the time peak week rolls around, if you wanted to make the most of it.
Yeah, so we've got three basic categories, right? We've got the extreme conditions. You've gotten really, really lean and you've got good amounts of muscle mass. What should we say classifies as good amounts of muscle mass for the natural? Anything above 65 kilos you end up on?
Yeah,
probably.
I would say yeah.
Sounds low, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it also depends on the height, right? So, yeah. But this is where the art comes in, where we would be able to see it, right, versus being able to describe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good point. So 65 kilos for anyone above between probably like 5'8" and maybe 5'10". And then if you're over 5'11", probably above 68, 70. I mean, there's a whole article we've got on it. How heavy will you be when you're lean? So you can check that out. But
and we've also got a peak week article too. So
absolutely. Yeah. So that's maybe like extreme condition, and then obviously if you're shorter, so if you're shorter, if you're like in the 5'5" to 5'8" mark, then maybe above 60 kilos. So that would be like classified as like, we'll call it category 1, right? And then category 2 is you're not absolutely shredded, but you're pretty lean. Like you're probably beach body lean. You're in a good shape, really good condition. You probably don't have loads of muscle mass, but you don't have no muscle mass either. You're in a good place. And then category C is, Category 3 is probably more of a lifestyle photo shoot look.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that lifestyle one is probably the one that probably needs the least adjusting, but there are definitely still things that we can do, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Cool. So there's no right or wrong which category you fall in, but you have a think when you're going through this journey where you might end up, and then you can apply the peak week principles we talk about. Before we do go into the different categories, let's talk about what not to do, because peak week has effectively come from the world of bodybuilding, and it's been sort of translated into what we do in a general population practice. Now, in bodybuilding, there used to be these sayings of like, you can save everything in the peak week, right? Don't worry about anything. Peak week is where you add an extra 5% to your physique. Get rid of all the water, flush the system, all this sort of stuff. The reality is none of that is actually applicable. And obviously, a lot of the stuff with bodybuilding is applicable to using steroids.
Exactly.
So in the natural world versus steroid world, it's a whole different ballgame. So we'll cover the natural focus here, but a lot of the myths have come from the steroid users. So why don't we tackle the big 3: sodium, diuretics, and training, and what you should and shouldn't do? Because we've all probably heard something about how to optimize your look for the beach or the photo shoot.
I'm sure everyone listening to this has probably heard of cutting out sodium, cutting out salt, because salt holds water. Therefore, it makes sense if I cut salt, And if I stop drinking, I've heard that one as well. Like people cut water like really, really early. So I guess that could be another one that we talk about, right? So salt, water, nutrition, and diuretics. But cutting sodium is one of the dumbest things that you can do for sure. Because you got to understand that sodium is actually responsible for transporting carbohydrates into your muscle cells, right? So we actually want more fluid in the muscle cell. So if you remove all sodium, you're actually going to be losing water from the muscle tissue, making you actually look flatter, and it can also just mess with your head, mess with your training performance, mess with your cognition, make you do weird and wonky things. So cutting sodium is definitely not recommended. What we recommend with sodium is simply just keep the same level that you have been up until then. So salting your food appropriately, not changing anything on that front. Just literally do whatever you've been doing for your entire process phase. Just keep doing that up until shoot day. So just to keep things very, very simple.
Yeah, perfect. I remember on my first bodybuilding show in 2014, I applied the steroid advice to my natural show. So I was cutting water, I was pulling sodium out, and I just realized when I got to the day, I was just flattening out like crazy. I couldn't get a proper pump. And
can't get a pump.
And then the solution was have some sodium and have some water.
Yeah.
And then in my next show in 2017, so I won that class. So they dope tested me.
Yeah.
So they dope tested the top two. They said to me I had the cleanest piss out of everyone in the backstage. Even then, people were still doing all these crazy things. So they were just so dehydrated on stage, but they managed to, for whatever reason, they managed to win the top places. But I had the cleanest piss on stage, and it just reminded me, actually, you don't need to do any of these wacky things because it goes against your body.
Yeah, and it can really detract from your physique, and it can just detract from everything that you're doing. So electrolyte balance is extremely important, and sodium is one of them. So you don't want to be messing with electrolytes. I know we haven't spoken about it, but like people also try to play with potassium as well. Do you remember that?
And that was like that's dangerous, right? People were dying. People were dying off that, no?
Yeah.
Collapsing on stage and things like that.
Yeah. So anyone listening, don't even think about potassium. Probably shouldn't have even said it.
Let's go on diuretics then. So what we mentioned just briefly there around cutting water. Why is it such a bad thing? And why do people do it?
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same idea with the sodium, just a lot more extreme. You know what I mean? Just trying to suck as much fluid and as much water out as possible to give this like more shredded condition, right? What's that?
Dry, look dry,
right? The dry look. Yeah. So I've never seen these things work well for many people. I think again, that's really, really dangerous as well. They what I just spoke about potassium, these really mess with your whole electrolyte balance as well. So diuretics is definitely not necessary. Not saying that I would recommend at all. And again, it's just focusing on the wrong thing during a peak. I think this whole trying to flush as much water out as possible idea or concept is just barking up the wrong tree. I just don't, if you're in condition and if you're in shape, like all that stuff doesn't really matter at all. So.
There's a trainer I used to work with when I was on the gym floor, and he used to regularly compete and he used to get into pretty good condition, but there's always he always left, you looked at him and think, if he just dropped a few more pounds, he'd look really, really good. But he'd always go into his peak week and be like, just now, it's just time to strip the water out now. He'd be grabbing his love handle and he'd be like, just a bit of water here. Can you see it? And I said, dude, I don't think that's water. I think you've just got body fat you need to get rid of here. But he was so convinced in his head that, and a lot of especially in the bodybuilding world, they were just so convinced. And then they turn up on stage. Ironically, they'd look watery.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, it's not water, it's fat, and you just need to get leaner, right? You don't need to be taking diuretics, you don't need to be cutting sodium, you need to lose more body fat. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the harsh truth. And the final thing, I guess, is what to avoid is doing radical changes with training. I think this is a really popular one. You think, right, I want to look my best at the beach on the photo shoot, so let's dial up the reps. Yeah. Let's sharpen, let's add a bit of burn into the muscles, all these things that we just kind of think, let's tone things up. So we'll start doing 15 to 20 reps, start doing circuits.
Drop sets.
The whole thing comes out, right? But so why is that such a bad thing?
So again, when we're looking to peak a physique, yes, we want to be absolutely shredded. So that means very, very little body fat, but we also want to be recovered, and we also want to have minimal inflammation and very minimal muscle damage. So if you're now throwing in a new training schedule in the mix that you've not done in years, or you just saw some IFBB pro do it, that's just, yeah, you're just setting yourself up for disaster, really, because you can really do a number on just how you can just you can really mess up your look if you change up your training in a way that just isn't that is new. It's creating a ton of muscle damage. It's just, yeah, you just go into failure and everything, drop sets, rest, pause, all that stuff, thinking that that's going to bring out more of your physique, and it's simply just going to be causing unnecessary damage that you don't need to be recovering from. And also, when you do, we'll probably talk about training later, but when you do a lot of muscle damage, it actually makes it harder for your muscles to soak up that carbohydrate, and makes it harder for you to actually fill up your glycogen stores. So yeah, all the more reason, like, training during that final week should literally just be some like just what you've been doing. I would also potentially cut. I wouldn't even be training to failure as well, like stopping a few reps shy. Remember, just that last week is, you're not going to be doing anything from a muscle growth perspective. It's literally just to maintain what you've got, give your body a bit of movement. If you're doing some depletion stuff, I know some people like to do that. That could work, but I don't think it's necessary at all. But yeah, it shouldn't be anything new it shouldn't be anything drastic, and it shouldn't be anything new that you haven't done for a very long time. It should just be the same, maybe just less of it.
Yeah, just like 80% or so of load, and 80% of reps maybe. But and also the other thing is you don't want to go the other way either and do nothing. And some people might think, let's start resting now. But you just want to keep things going. A really good example of like how you can see this thing work is when you do get really lean and you finish your shoot or whatever, and then you train legs. And this works if you're very lean and you train legs hard, and the next day when you try and like flex them, they just don't pop as much.
Yeah, there's no separation. There's no separation. Yeah.
It's a really good example of like what actually happens with muscle damage. When you're lean, these things make more of a difference, I'd say. If you're probably in the lifestyle category, probably won't make too much of a difference if you start doing a few drop sets. But if you're lean, you will do damage on how you look.
Yeah, especially lower body. And that's another reason why we advocate, training legs at the start of the week, just so you give the entire week, or you give enough time throughout the whole week for your legs to recover, bring a bit more sharpness into the quads, which we know, quads especially, I think, are very impacted by heavy training, especially from like a separation definition perspective. So resting them as much as you can prior to your shoot is going to be ideal.
Yeah, when you're really lean and you've got muscle damage in your legs, it's weird, isn't it? You try and pop them and nothing
You feel
happens.
10 weeks out. I know. Yeah. You can't flex them. Yeah, it's really not nice.
Yeah. Well, let's go into then what you should do, and maybe we'll just segue off what we just talked about with training. We've identified training legs earlier in the week. What about cardio? Like, how do we play cardio? Maybe we change it based on the category as well. What happens to cardio? And let's assume someone has got up to doing anywhere between 4 and 6 sessions a week of 45 to 60 minutes. What does that look like going into the final week?
So again, I think if we look at the category 1 person, any of these changes are going to have a larger impact on someone who's lean, like very, very lean. So I think that's just a good rule of thumb. So bringing down cardio, I think, is going to be great, all for the reasons that we just mentioned there, especially in regards to the lower body. Especially if you're doing things like running, but even cycling, if you're doing a lot of it, leg swelling is definitely a thing. So pulling back on the cardio is going to be a good idea. I would potentially just taper that across the week. If, let's just say, you got your shoot on Monday, I would aim to have my last cardio session done by Wednesday. And even that session then is not going to be anything hard. It's just zone 2 type stuff, low intensity. And then I would just literally just remove it from there. It depends on the person. I think there's something to be said for just feeling comfortable and having routine. And, if, let's say, daily cardio was like part of your routine for, I don't know, 6-10 weeks, like, you may just feel a little bit better doing something, up until a shoot day. Some people just have that mental thing. I wouldn't recommend it. I would just call it. Yeah. I would definitely just call it. But
I'd say if that's you, like, you're probably not in category 1. The reason being,
that's true. Yeah. You would be like category 3.
You're doing anything to stop that. You're doing anything to not do cardio at that point.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is,
yeah. If you've pushed it hard enough, you'd probably want to have that recovery from the cardio as well. So
I couldn't imagine, now that I'm doing running, I couldn't imagine doing running during a prep.
Absolutely not.
So much damage, right?
Absolutely not. Even just, I know this is not the topic for today, but I think the more cardio you have in your plan during a fat loss phase, the harder you're making your journey, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think crazy amounts of cardio only has a
Yeah.
negative impact on your fat loss results.
Yeah.
But we'll
See,
talk about that later.
I would have debated you maybe 5 years ago, but
I
after
know.
what I did in 2022, when you
Yeah.
suggested to me, don't do way less cardio, I think
Yeah.
it made a massive difference. Just how I
Yeah.
felt. I think I felt better
Exactly.
for way longer because
Exactly.
every prep before that, I was doing 6 to 7 days a week, up to 60 minutes,
Yep.
with sometimes even hitting there. Whereas
Yep.
with 22, I only did 3. The most we ever did, I think, was 3 times 45, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
So
baffled
we just
me.
kept that on the low, and we just let nutrition do all the hard work during a fat loss phase, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Even my
I think
steps didn't go
cardio.
that high.
No. So I think a lot of excess activity, especially for someone who wants to get category 1 lean, I think it's more of a detriment than a addition, in all fairness. I've learned that recently too, to be honest.
Yeah. It's a hard one. It's a weird one to kind of accept when you are doing it, because you think like more is more, and I need to do more to burn the fat.
No, it doesn't
But
work
if your
that way.
adherence is really, really high on nutrition, then probably 100%. If you're going to go category 1 lean, then
that's the thing. Like, you don't have to then worry about all the nagging fatigue that comes with all that cardio, which is a lot, especially if you're not eating enough to fuel that as well. That's when it becomes a nightmare. But that's what I was saying, because if you're trying to also like do a lot of cardio and not eat enough food, I think you just end up in a hole. You end up losing muscle as well. I don't think you bring a better package at the end of the whole phase. I think you take away from the physique by doing that much cardio just before a shoot, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I share that sentiment now as well. All right, let's go into, so we've done training, we've done cardio. Let's go into
steps.
Let's do steps then, yeah.
Yeah, so steps, again, will follow the same trajectory as cardio as well. You just want to be tapering them down. So if steps have been like 20K, God knows how long. Bringing them down to like 15K on a Tuesday, 10K on the Wednesday, and then just, anywhere between 6 to 8K up until your shoot is going to be perfect. So again, it's just tapering. It's just, not going out excessively for walks. Just, again, focusing on recovery, focusing on relaxation, and just letting the body heal.
Man, that feels so good when you start tapering those steps down, doesn't it?
And you don't realize how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah. You used to do a lot of steps yourself?
No. Maybe like 10K.
Did you do it actively or do you do it passively?
No, I just go. I go for a walk with my friend in the morning, and that's like for about an hour and a bit, and that's it really. And then everything else is just passive stuff. Yeah. So I don't track it. No.
Yeah, cool. Without going too off topic there, let's go into carbohydrates.
Yeah.
We've got 3 categories. So there's 3 different categories. Maybe because of the level of depth in each one. Let's start with category 3. So let's start with lifestyle and then move up.
Yep. So with a lifestyle, there is, regarding carbohydrates during that final week, you're not going to need much of a bump there. I would say, if you've been on, say, 50 grams of carbs for the last couple of weeks or last month or whatnot, even just a couple of days at 150, 200, I think would be enough just to, again, make it, the carbohydrates in these individuals are not there to like pop the physique. They are there just to enhance recovery. You know what I mean? Just to make someone feel relaxed, make someone actually feel good, drop a bit of inflammation, so then they can bring their best package to the shoot. So again, nothing crazy for the category 3s. Pretty much everything the same. Maybe a couple days earlier in the week where we go to 150, 200, see how the physique looks like. We either hold or we add a bit more. But yeah, nothing drastic there at all. No.
Yeah, agreed. And then let's go moderate to lean with not as much muscle. So category 2, how high are we going in carbs?
Yeah. So, that's also going to depend. It could be anywhere between 250, 350 for a couple of days. It's going to depend on how much muscle that individual has too. So I personally like to do a bit of a front load, where we give a decent carb amount at the start of the week, and then we see how the body responds, because then you can just always tweak. So let's just say you went a little bit too much on the Tuesday, no big deal. You can pull it back the next day and the following day and tidy up the physique before it gets to the shoot on Saturday, So with them, the moderate is just going to be a little bit more than the category 3s, but also nothing crazy at all. So 250, 350, 400. Anything in that range is usually going to be decent.
Which sounds like a lot if you're only on 50, 60 grams of carbs, but generally around 4 to 6. It's about 4 to 6 grams per kilo.
Per kilo.
Right?
Yeah,
per kilo.
Yeah, roughly about that. Which,
yeah. For most people, if they're 60 kilos to 70 kilos, will be around what you just said there.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of front loading as well. I remember when I first tried it, it felt like a lot safer option than the traditional backload, but it just gives you that buffer period.
Unless you've done a backload a few months back. But then I still think that you're a different specimen a few months ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It just feels risky, doesn't it? It just feels risky.
It does. Yeah.
Because you mess it up, you could have all your hard work. It's not all gone, but it's not going to look as good as it could have.
Nah. But like the best prep, I think the best coach for prep though, Cliff Wilson, I think he nails it though with a lot of his clients.
Does he do back? I thought he used to do front load.
Yeah. I think he does some heavy backloads too as well with the right person. But
I think if you nail the science, if you nail your body for it, and you can do it 2 chest runs, it probably can work.
Can work really well. Yeah.
Let's get into then the super lean and the muscles. So category 1, and maybe we use we can use what we did in 22 as an example of how we approached it. So just for some context, we came into the final week here, and I think this is where like a lot more of the research around the front loading was coming in, or no, not even the front loading, how many carbs to try. So I think, remember you said to me, so what, do you want to try something a bit drastic? And what I'd always historically, I'd always sort of underloaded a bit.
Yeah, you were conservative.
I was very conservative. So I either never popped or I couldn't hold it for long enough.
Yeah.
So I'd fade away very quickly. So you suggested, why don't you try something a bit more aggressive? So what do we go? I think we were with 800. I think the shoot was on Sunday. We wanted a peak for. So on Wednesday, you said let's hit 800 in there. But before we did the 800, we increased fats for 3 days just to top up the intramuscular triglycerides.
Yeah,
and also
and also to hold the carbs in there.
Yeah.
That was really fascinating. That was really cool to see that.
So walk us through it. Like, what was why does that work? Why can the body get away with so much? Because coming into it, I think I must have bottomed out on maybe 50, 60 grams of carbs. Maybe I think it was around there actually.
So it goes back to what we said earlier, right? When you've been that depleted for so long, and you would have been running on very low carbs for a really, really long time, so your muscles were just like asking for it. You know what I mean? They were just thirsty for carbohydrates, and the more you deplete them over time, the more responsive they're going to be when you do refeed them. So I think that definitely played a part. Yeah, the intramuscular fats is a very interesting one. Many people don't realize that we actually store some fat within our glycogens or within our muscle cells too. And that can actually take up quite a bit of energy as well. So, over the course of the diet, those were probably tanked as well. You probably had nothing in there. You know what I mean? The body was trying to hold on to as much fat as it could. So that's why, adding in some fat, because usually what I would have done before was with that amount of carbohydrates would be, okay, make sure that fat is like 0, But what the research was showing was that some fat loading at the start of the week can actually not only help just fill you out more, but it can then also help hold the carbohydrates in the muscle a bit more. So you actually have that fuller look, and you're not just like flushing and pissing and losing that pop. And I think you were a really good example because you got just absolutely shredded. So we could see what was happening in real time. So to be honest, it was just like a big experiment for us as well.
So we came in, so the start of the week, I think I bottomed out at 30 grams fat and maybe 50, 60 grams carbs. So for the first 3 days of the week, we did 60 grams of fats. So we doubled the fats. We kept the carbs low. We started tapering the steps and the cardio. And then on the Wednesday, we held the fats, or we slightly reduced it. No, it might be just minimal. It would have been trace amounts just because of how many carbs are going in. It was 800 went in on Wednesday. My body weight didn't change overnight. I think then we did 700, and then still was like, okay, cool. We don't need to keep doing 700, but nothing was changing. So we just held on 400 for the next 3 days. It was just like, what the hell's going on? How's the body just soaking this all up?
I know, but even when you look at like the research, it's like the human body can only store 500 grams of carbs, and it's just like, but there are so many variations there, and again, there are so many exceptions to that rule. You've seen that. It's just like, the muscles can store 400 grams, the liver can store 100 grams, and there's always going to be some in circulation and some in the brain. And I'm like, but people have bigger muscles. Like there are people that have huge muscles, and even endurance athletes that don't have massive muscles, their capacity to store glycogen is still like massive, like huge. So that rule is definitely there to be broken, because we've seen people do some crazy amounts. And then I think what happens during that phase, the human body is just crazy, man. Like how certain people respond to different things. Again, that's where the art comes in, right? It's just like, you would think that much carbohydrate, but maybe for someone else at your level, same level of leanness, same muscularity, you give them 800 grams of carbs, and for whatever reason, they just spill.
Yeah, it's very unique. Yeah. That's why it's a risk, wasn't it?
100%. But this is
we had 5 days to put it back. So, like, worst case scenario, you just pull all the carbs off the next day or go back to 50, and you probably would have burned through it.
Exactly. So, I do find it very fascinating how the body can just change that much during that week. But again, so many factors can impact your ability to also glycogen load. Like, enough fats in the diet, stress, muscle damage, sleep, poor sleep. Like all these things can impact your ability to bring your best physique to the stage as well. So it's just a fascinating time.
And the challenge is, if you're in category 1, your sleep is probably not that great. And because of the nature of your condition, it's hard to relax because your anxiety is quite high. So it's like it's like a double-edged sword, isn't it? So the only thing you can do is like maybe just chill out and work a bit and not add more stresses, but your body is already pretty stressed.
I think at that time, it's just minimizing as much stress as you can, to the best of your ability, whatever that means.
Yeah, that was interesting. Do you remember when I sent you? I think we were using my arse shots to gauge if we spill or not. So after each carb load, I sent you a picture of my arse saying, I think we're good.
We're good. He's on. Should compete.
Same amount of lines still here.
But it's true. Like I know that may sound funny to people, but when it gets to that level, like you want to be looking. Glute striations are a pretty good indicator that you're in good condition, right?
And this is where the art thing comes in that it's hard to, when you've got someone category 1, I think also potentially in category 2 as well, is well, definitely actually category 2, is you can plan the first day of the load and be like, let's say it's 300 grams or 800 grams. But the days after are very much day to day. You've got to see what's going on. And then I think knowing how someone responds after the first day, you probably get a good idea of how the next few days will go. But it's that the plan can be good for the first day, and then it's these adjustments, and then after that you probably know where it's roughly going to go. So it does need a bit of flex
fine tuning for sure. But I guess what do you think would be some good signs then that the peak is working, right? More vascularity, more separation. You can just see more muscles pop. You feel good. You feel just excited. You feel happy.
I think body weight, you either want it to hold or go up slightly. If it goes up 1 or 2 pounds, I'm like, it's perfect. If it goes up like a lot, then it's probably like you've probably overdone it. But 1 or 2 pounds is like, it's perfect. It's just a bit of extra volume in the body. And then body weight, and then just I think just the feel, and I think also when your veins are coming back. Because going into a peak week, you're very flat
out.
You've got nothing going on, right? You can do a bicep curl, and you just see your skin moving up and down. And then all of a sudden you're like, when you go into you do your workout that day or the day after, you're like,
skin's popping.
Something's changing. When that happens, I think if you're doing that and nothing's changing, you've not even scratched the surface. And you've probably gone too conservative. And that's what happened to me in previous attempts. Is I was doing these, but I'll be in peak week, final 4 days. I hadn't seen a vein yet.
You don't want that.
So then you're adding more and more and more. So then in previous I'd start with like 400, then the next day I'd go 500, then I'd go 600, and then it's like then I'd be conservative because I'd be thinking, I don't want to spill now. So then I go back.
And that's causing more stress, more anxiety. Not a fun time.
It's interesting. Okay, so talk carbs. Let's talk protein and fats. We've actually done fats actually. So it's just protein, which is pretty simple. Just keep the same.
I would, literally, let's just keep that stock standard. Don't even change it. I think for category 1 though, let's just say you are pumping that much carbohydrate like you were, could be worth just pulling protein a little bit lower, just to make it easier for you to get those carbs in. Plus, if you're having like things like rice and whatnot, you're still going to be getting some protein there anyway. So
it's worth actually saying with the carb, if you're doing the heavy carb loads, is if you're doing it all from oats and potatoes, you might cause yourself some issues. So you might want to just think about the sources of carbs.
That's actually a good point. Should we talk about that then as well?
Yeah, go for it. You're the volume expert, Mr. Volume. Probably the one time to not be Mr. Volume.
This is the perfect time to not be Mr. or Mrs. Volume for sure. Or or gender neutral volume. So it is important to go with sources that you know digest really, really well for you. So for most, that's going to be rice. White rice is very simple. There's no fiber in that. It's literally just glucose, which is fantastic. If you're a fan of cereal like I am, I know we introduced some Cocoa Bombs or Cocoa Pops.
Yeah.
I remember the ones you brought home weren't vegan, and then you're like, I can't eat them. I got to take them back.
Oh, I had to return them.
I remember that.
I went to Tesco and returned them.
Dedication to the cause. So simple carbohydrates from cereals can be really good. Rice will be really good. Easy to digest fruits. So that can be berries for most. Berries wouldn't even be. I wouldn't load with them at all. But dried fruits can be really good as well. Dried bananas, stuff like that. But anything that's you just want to go for things that are pretty much all carbohydrates, very minimal fiber to none, because too much fiber or even any fiber during that peak or the day that you consume like 800 grams of carbs, it's only just going to be sitting in your gut. It's not going to get to where you want it to go. So keeping fiber on the low end would be a good idea. Still have veggies. Don't cut them out completely. We could probably cut them out on the day. That would be helpful advice. So still keep your veggies in, still get your micronutrients in, but just opt for carbohydrate sources that are not, super high fiber. So oats, potatoes, probably not the best way to go there.
Well, I think on that first day, I started off. I came out the traps on like 150 grams of oats, and then I remember realizing this is not going to be a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a lot of oats to have, but
it's a lot of oats.
It keeps you very, very full. So you want to pull back. The cereal, I think, is the best way to just
definitely
is to do it. Just have. I think I ended up just doing normal meals plus loads of cereal on top.
Exactly. That's how I treat my endurance days now.
You're always in peak week.
I'm always always peaking. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's go into more general points now. We've kind of discussed water and sodium staying the same. A couple other little tips that might help is no new condiments, no new like sauces, spices. Yeah. You can get exciting. You're thinking, I'm going to try some new foods, but keep it all simple.
Just keep it same.
Keep it boring. And just enjoy the extra carbs. It's not the time to be cracking out new recipes and start thinking how you can make all these amazing meals. Just keep it really, really simple. And I think the biggest thing has got to be the sleep and the relaxing. Whilst we've acknowledged the fact that it's going to be potentially a little bit difficult, I think you can also stress yourself out over these few days and be like, am I looking good? Constantly checking the mirror, pinching your skin to see if you're in shape. Are you losing it? I think the best thing to do is just completely switch off. This is why I think it works really well where we do the thinking for our clients.
100%.
It's the worst thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Guys. Yeah. Even I was like, I need your help.
Outsource it because you're your own like worst critic at that time. You're not in the best headspace to make these decisions. Like you're just not. So you need that third party objective expertise to actually guide you. And not only does that you will know that you're getting the best service that you possibly can. And it also just removes that, should I have this? Should I have that? I don't know. Like just send your photos to your coach who's looking at, who's obviously coaching you through the process, and they do all the decision making for you. So again, that's just reducing a lot of extra stress. And for a company like us, we've done this a lot of times with a lot of people. So you can be pretty confident that we're going to get you into really good shape. So that's a huge stress relief in my opinion.
I couldn't imagine doing I think that's when I needed your guys' help the most, because otherwise you just drive yourself nuts and you probably undercook it because
and you're going too conservative.
Yeah, you think carbs are going to be the enemy, even though objectively they're not. But in that state, you're just so used to
you're not thinking clearly. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing to bring up is caffeine. It's just keeping that steady and don't manipulate caffeine, because obviously that'll impact dehydration or hydration. Just keep your caffeine intake the same. Keep your coffee intake the same. Just don't manipulate those sorts of things, because it would just.
I think a general rule is just keep as much the same as you possibly can. That's literally the thing that you want to do, and you just literally just remove all the things that we just spoke about, or taper those things down, while everything else in your life stays consistent.
Yeah, turn up in shape, stay consistent, add a few more carbs, and relax. It's probably like the TLDR on this whole thing.
Exactly. That's actually perfect, to be honest. Not much else to add to that.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into on the day then. Like, so you wake up on the day of the shoot. What are you doing? Obviously, the timings will depend. It depends on the timings, but let's assume an 11 a.m. shoot, and someone can just scale it accordingly.
Yep. Yep. So on the day, I would like to have just your let's say you go for your normal breakfast like you have been having this entire time. I would definitely have that at the start. I think, in my opinion, having some easy to digest protein, some easy to just digest carbs, a couple hours beforehand is going to be fantastic. We don't want to be adding too much fiber in this meal. Again, we want to keep everything as tight as possible in the intestines. So the less food volume that's going through there. I guess we could probably backtrack. Make sure you have a nice poop first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
That has got to happen. So do what you need to do.
You're not going to affect your abs.
You're not, but you're just going to feel uncomfortable as well. So, hydrate in the morning, get some caffeine in you, go for a little stroll, get those bowels moving. Make sure you have a nice evacuation first thing. And then from there, we can just, we can have the breakfast, we can have the easy to digest foods. I would go, as I said, a couple hours beforehand, just your stock standard breakfast or stock standard meal 2, whatever that is. Chicken and rice, very, very simple. Tofu and rice, same. Again, I wouldn't be adding anything different. Whatever condiments you've been using, just use them. I would be sipping water. I'll take a decent chunk down maybe first thing, and then just throughout the morning, just keep sipping it. No need to be gulping a ton of water down. Just drink to thirst. That would be completely fine. Relax as much as you possibly can during that morning. Record your selfie for R&T for us. Well, that's after the shoot, right?
Yeah, after.
after the shoot.
But here's the thing, and I think the biggest thing I see where people don't look as good as they want to is just the relaxing element. As soon as they relax, you can just see it. You can just see their body just unfold live in front of you. It's weird.
Well,
there's a peak in itself happening there.
Well, what happens when people look better after their show? Like, how common is that?
Oh, all the time.
The day after.
Shut up. Yeah.
Yeah. The day after, people look better than they did on the show.
Ironically, so in 22, I did the Saturday with my dad. Remember, I did something with my dad.
Yeah.
And then I did it my own one on. I think I did my dad on Sunday. I did my own one on Monday, but my dad one on Sunday, I didn't look good at all because there was also 3 other R&T shoots happening. I was like moving around there. I was trying to coordinate what's going on there. Then I was doing my dad, but I was more worried about him. And then in the end, I looked at the picture. I was like, I just looked like, just looked, it's funny word to use after all this, but worry.
Yeah.
Then I remember just,
but because you timed your peak properly.
Yeah.
A properly timed peak, you shouldn't be able to hold it.
Well, I also just felt stressed from this whole thing. And then I remember saying to my wife, I was like, I need to chill out this afternoon because otherwise tomorrow I'm not going to look good at all. Just completely relaxed, did nothing, just put my feet up, woke up the next day. I was like, oh shit, okay, now it's on.
There we go.
So it makes a massive, massive difference. And it's, again, more of these things make more of a difference as you're leaner and leaner.
Yep. But again, it's also a lot easier said than done, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but morning of, I would cut out vegetables in your meals as well. As I said, simple carbs, simple protein, stuff that you've been able to digest very easily. As you're getting to the shoot, we've already said just little sips of water. No need for extra caffeine, no need for extra anything else. 10, 15 minutes before the shoot starts, definitely get pumping up. You can also, again, if you're super, super lean, add a bit of carbohydrates as you're doing that as well. Snickers bar can be good just to get a bit more vascularity in there.
Only if you know that digest well with you.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Don't do the Snickers bar.
Yeah.
And
the carbs makes a big difference there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you can start pumping up with carbohydrates, a little mixture, something that you've normally had up until that point. I don't think things like Powerade are fine. Like, they're not going to destroy your gut that late on. I don't think they're going to mess with you that much. But other than that,
I remember
just enjoy it.
In 2017, the show I did there, there was a morning and then there's the evening, right? The bodybuilding. So the morning came out like looking great. There was this other one guy and I was walking all over him in conditioning. And I remember seeing this guy thinking, like, he has so much potential. Why is something's not quite like looking right? And then in the evening, he comes out, guys doing like backflips on the stage, planches, all this sort of stuff. And he just looked like a different person. Like, he came out 3D, all this sort of stuff. I said to him afterwards, what did you do differently between like the morning and the afternoon? He's in the morning, I was on the toilet before getting called out. So I heard the call out, I had to run to the stage. I hadn't done my pump up. I hadn't done hadn't had my carbs. Whereas in the afternoon, you know what, I just had a bit of wine, had a bit of wine, and I had loads of cereal, and I just filled out, looked good, and you just like it's just it's a great example of just seeing what the human body can do when you just give it at that stage. He just came
what it
out
needs
3D. And it's just insane. He walked all over me, and he won it.
Probably wouldn't recommend wine to anyone who's listening, but you never know. I've seen it work with some people.
The same guy, I said to him also, how long have you been? I just come off a 20-week prep. He's like, how long have you been prepping for? He's like, about 6-7 weeks. I was like, what did you do differently? He's like, I just cut the junk. I just cut the junk. So I was never going to win this one.
Some people like that. Yeah.
It's genetics, right?
Yeah.
A couple of things that can help you relax and feel more excited is, I think, the grooming process. And weirdly enough, I think it can help you feel quite motivated and more confident in your body, because it's a strange one. I think I can speak more for guys because I've gone through that. Is when you've got body hair, and I'm not that hairy, but even a little bit of body hair can make a massive difference in how your abs and your chest and your arms look. And when you take that, and especially your legs, when you take that off and you just see the work that's been done, it's all of a sudden you can feel that motivational kick in of like, oh wow, and that can automatically make you relax more. Because I think sometimes when you've got the body hair covering, you can have that feeling of, am I ready? Or on my feet, am I looking good?
Yeah.
And then you
feel clear. You feel crisp. You feel clean. You feel sharp. Haircut, all that stuff goes a long way.
You do that 5 days before, and then you're doing it also at the same time as the carb loading, and all of us. I think the physical change happens like quite rapidly, and nothing's really changed. It's just that you can now see your muscles that you couldn't see before because there was a bit of hair on it.
You just revealed it.
Yeah, you just revealed it. So that, and then you get the trim, you get the tan the day before. So if you think about timings, you want to do the hair removal 4 or 5 days before. There's different options. You can do clippers. If you haven't got much hair, then clippers works really well. You can do, is it wet shaving? Is another one. And hair removal. But I think those are more for like if you don't have much hair. And then I think ideally, I used to be quite against it because I was just scared of the reaction. But I think waxing is
good,
waxing quite well. But just do it 5 days.
But you want to have that, 5 days out, because heavy waxing can also cause inflammation on the skin temporarily and make you look a bit watery. Yeah.
I was terrified of that. I remember turning up to my wax. It was on the same day as the 800 grams. I had to pause. I had to say to her, because it was 2-hour wax, because she sold me on the full body and the full shebang, right? She sold me on everything. She said, you may as well, you only do this once in your life, right? I was like, well, I don't know when I'm going to next to her. She's like, why don't we just do it for the full experience? I said, yeah, all right, go on then. But because it took so long, I didn't underestimate. So I took me with me. I had to pause her. I said, look, do you mind? I'm carb loading today. Do you mind if we just hit pause for 15 minutes? I just sit there and just eat, knock back another 150, 200 grams of carbs, and then told her to carry on. And then I'd come, because we ran out of time, I'd come back the next day.
Far out. That's stressful.
I think it's all part of the experience, though. This thing, it kind of makes it a bit of a fun. Like when else are like, especially for our members who have never done anything like this before, it's once in a lifetime, you're going to get a spray tan, you're going to get a wax done, you're going to do this peak week. It makes the whole thing worth it. And I think it's a memorable experience, and why I think everyone should do some sort of peak week at the end, because it's just something you're never going to do in your life, right? After this. And it's something you'll always remember. I think nearly everyone we speak to who does a photo shoot or similar will say it's one of the best days of their life. And always. And that's for so many reasons, right? It's so many reasons, because they'll always remember it as the peak of something that they worked really, really hard for. And they'll always remember those pictures as, they look amazing, but they'll know the story behind it, the hard days that go into it. Like if we think back to some of the ones we've done, it'll always be the hard days you remember. And you look at these pictures, and think, I remember when I did that, and I remember when I did this. And
that was wild.
There's memories to it that I think if you don't do it, you just kind of miss out on that experience.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why it's, even if you're not like super shredded and whatnot, doesn't matter. Like you can still make yourself look the best that you possibly can during that final week. It's going to give you a big confidence boost. And by that time, you probably are looking the best you've ever looked in your life anyway, you know? So make the most of the experience, lap it up, get all the waxing done in all areas as AV did.
That was a very strange experience.
But no, it's just the whole process of you're literally peaking your physique, you're peaking everything for that one day. And I think everyone should have something like that and to look back on and just go, that was incredible. And we've seen that with our own clients, the people who do go all the way and they finish off with a shoot, like they always look back on it and go, glad I did that. Like no one regrets doing a shoot.
Nah.
You know, no one regrets taking themselves to the extreme. You know, people do regret not taking themselves to the extreme, especially when they were that close.
The chance of you being in a position where you can pull the pin for 3 to 4 weeks and take yourself to a photo shoot, it's not going to come around very often. You gotta have so many not stars aligning, but it's not something you just wake up tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and get to that point again.
No. So no, everyone should definitely do it at least once.
Funny experience. I mean, I think the waxing experience was one of the. I think it was one of the most. I told someone recently. I think it was a really life-changing experience because I'll tell you why though. So this was April. So you're in the depths of the grind. You start thinking about life. You think, what do you want, and all this. This is when I decided, like, you know what? I think I'm ready to be a dad. And so I go to this waxing experience, and she was quite she had a bit of a woo energy about her, right? She was a bit of a. She's a bit of a character. So when I came back for the next day, so I had the wax on day one, and that evening I told Chani, I was like, I think I'm ready to. I think it's a good time to have kids now. We should start trying. The next day, the lady comes in. I'm butt naked on the thing. She goes to me, "So you got kids?" I was like, "No." She's like, "You've been thinking about having kids?" I was like, "Yeah. Why?" She's like, "I just sense this energy that you're ready to have kids." I was like, "That's just fucking that's sealed the deal." I kid you not. And I went home and I said, "Chani, you wouldn't believe what the wax lady said." She's like, she almost knew we had this conversation last night. I've not told anyone until then. And she just sensed, she had this sense of like, I think you're ready to have kids. And they spent the next hour talking about kids.
Because you were shredded. So lesson learned. If you didn't go through that whole procedure, you wouldn't have seen her.
Yeah. And if I didn't have wax, I wouldn't have had that confirmation I needed. So if you want a life-changing experience, don't only just get shredded, but get yourself a full body wax. Get yourself a full body wax at the end. You don't know what's going to come.
Exactly.